by calling with your questions or comments about the topic of discussion, which we'll introduce at the top of the show. The number to call is 317-67-OOIDA. That's 317-676-6432. And now I'll turn it over to your host.
Hey, thank you, Narita, and a big thanks to everyone that continues to tune into the show. The questions and comments that we've been getting over the last few weeks and months has been great, so hopefully we can keep growing it from here. And again, welcome back to another episode of Live from Exit 24. This particular episode is supposed to be another way that OOIDA leadership can hear from drivers and get feedback on everything from what's happening out on the road to legislative and regulatory efforts in D.C. But we also have guests on the show like Bob Poole from a couple of weeks ago with the Reason Foundation, and we've had a couple members of Congress. So if there's someone that you think we should have on the show or some topic that you think we need to cover, please just let us know. Again, this is a live call-in show, and the number is 317-676-6432. Again, that's 317-67-OOIDA. The lines are open, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. And if you're watching or listening on YouTube, you can post a question or comment there, and we'll do our best to get to it. All right, time to move on. Today we have one, familiar face and voice right now, hoping to have a second one join us. But right now we have Todd Spencer, President and CEO of OOIDA, and we were supposed to have Lewie Pugh, OOIDA's Executive Vice President. Something came up, and so I guess Todd's stuck with me for the next hour. So Todd, welcome to the program.
Hey, glad to be part of the show. And you know what? I just see Mr. Pugh coming this way right now. So
there he is.
You won't have to, miss him for too long. What is
Everybody misses me.
what is it they say about a bad penny?
He was already talking before he sat down and put his headsets on. So
Lewie, straight.
Lewie, I guess welcome to you as well.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure as always.
Well, let's just quickly cover something. Last week, OOIDA had its first of two annual board meetings. Not a normal board meeting in the sense that it was virtual, but still a lot of work gets done, and I'm going to assume that you guys were able to cover quite a bit of stuff. And my first question, Todd, for you is, can you give us a little bit of background on the board itself, what the makeup of the board is, and just, kind of a quick little 2-minute overview of the OOIDA Board of Directors?
Well, this pretty much goes back to the origination of the organization itself, electing a board of directors that was made up of members and made up of truckers. And the board is to provide perspective, information, to serve as a resource for actually to keep the focus of the association on real issues that affect real truckers, and of course OOIDA is an association unlike any other in that our board of directors is made up of real truckers. And the only way you can be on the board is if you've been a trucker prior to actually coming on the board. So that's built into our bylaws, and it's like that basically to make sure that the views of the organization represent primarily those people behind the wheel, and that's drivers, that's owner operators, that's small fleet operators. These are the folks that basically whose input is most beneficial to the organization because it's about issues that are going to affect these folks.
Sure. Well, and that was my next question is, what kind of topics do you guys cover at the board meeting?
Primarily, we'll get into certainly legislative and regulatory issues that are either on the table or pending or things that we would like to see. We also dedicate time to specifically talking about issues in safety. And then, of course, as we go beyond issues that come up, the overall economics for the world, the country, and for truckers. And, of course, one of the things that we've learned through the years is that if you're going to make the best decisions you can make are based on the best information that is you make yourself avail yourself to, and we try to reach out to the experts on almost on every significant issue, and certainly with all of the things the different economic climate that we're in right now, where it's hard. I mean, you can certainly be enthusiastic, euphoric, and as many are right now, because, boy, for the most in trucking, it's the good times. And can it last? And, of course, truckers are a reflection of the broader economy. And generally, when things are good, truckers are going to feel it first. And when things start being not so good, that's going to show up among trucking, too. So, again, we want the secret to success in so many things is just simply being prepared. Now, you can't control everything, but you could certainly respond to everything, and responding there are appropriate ways to respond, and there are ways to respond where you actually do better, or another way of looking at it is at least it's less harmful. So at any rate, we want most truckers are survivors, and we want to help them.
Well, it's great points and great background. And Lewie, you've been on the board for a while. Anything you want to add about the board meetings, what you get out of them now, maybe versus, what you got out of them 10 years ago?
Yeah. First thing I would say is our board is very diverse in what they do and who they are. And we, it's always good to add more diversity, but we have people on the board from all over the country. We have a board member from Canada. And they're involved in all kinds of different aspects of the industry. So it's not just one group or one part of trucking or whatever it is. We've got people that haul bulk stuff. We've got people pull reefers, people pull flatbeds, people pull tankers. So which really, really adds to the discussion. And one person even actually has a big fleet, in charge of a fleet. So I think that's a good thing. Always urge people, especially young people, get involved. I got involved. I got on the board when I was 31 years old. Didn't completely have a good idea what was going on, but learned a little bit along the way, I hope. And but with that, so always urge people to do that. It's different now. When I was on the board before working in-house, of course, I came in here with the trucker perspective, and which is what we want. I mean, I don't know that we've figured it up lately, but at one time we had over like 800 years worth of experience on our board. Yep. And it's probably still close to that, or maybe it's more. I don't know. But, so originally when like the board members come in with my perspective on the road, now that I'm here, I still have, because I'm always constantly talking to truckers and stuff like that and try to be aware of the industry. But, it's nice now because they can come in and we can kind of I can talk about what I'm hearing in here to what they're hearing out there, and, to help us make our decisions on where we go, whether it's advocacy or whatever, business-wise or whatever.
Well, thank you both for the background, and I guess we'll move on and actually get to some fun stuff now. Todd and Lewie, last week, OOIDA sent a letter to Transportation Committee Chairman Peter DeFazio, who is the lead Democrat on transportation issues in the U.S. House of Representatives. And the letter was also addressed to Sam Graves, who is the lead Republican on transportation issues in the House. So those are really the folks on the House side of the Capitol that deal with a majority of trucking issues. And I think the letter was about 8 pages long and touched on 21 unique issues. Some of those issues are good and others not so good, I guess, is the way I would frame that. And I guess before we get into those issues, all of this is in the context of a highway bill or a surface transportation reauthorization bill, whatever you want to call it. And I was hoping that first, maybe Todd, Lewie, you guys can both give us a little background on what a highway bill actually is and why we always talk about it. And I don't know which one of you wants to go first, but...
Well, since I'm probably the closest in the room in terms of when highway first started, so hopefully my memory... it was just after they went from dirt.
You've been through a few highway bills, Todd, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the first one was for the Santa Fe Trail, getting goods or something, horse and wagon maybe.
Well, anyway, generally, the federal government or the government overall has always had some involvement in roads and creating transportation systems, but long ago, it was pretty primitive, and they were pretty primitive. It really got going big time after the decision from President Eisenhower at the time that there should be a national system of roads, and then it became about how do we fund the roads. Initially there were like federal fuel taxes that might be, I think they started out as little as 2 cents a gallon, and it really didn't move much for a long time. And I think when President Reagan was elected, and that was 1980, the federal fuel tax was only 4 cents a gallon. That's what it was when he got elected. And of course, that funded, that money went into what was created called the Highway Trust Fund, and that was basically for big roads. And it all evolved through there, but as the needs became greater and the money became greater, lawmakers would basically, they would like to see various improvements in their states and things like that, and yet it was all done piecemeal. But after a while, lawmakers said, well, wait a minute, this isn't a good way to do that. We actually need to do some planning, we need to do some budgeting, and we need to, basically think ahead. So since then, our highway systems have basically fall under a category where every 4 or 5, or I think maybe the maximum, I don't know if it's ever been out as far as 6 years or not, but these things get reviewed by all of the Congress and all of the Senate, and in it, generally anything of substance for broader highway policy is not something that's going to be discussed it can certainly be discussed, but it's not going to generally be acted on individually. It's going to be acted on as part of a broader package. So we get to where we are today, where we have lawmakers and various interest groups that will put together ideas that they'd like to see move forward, and they get shoved into this great big package. So what we see always is the things that we push for, we advocate for, we certainly want to see in these highway bills. And of course, there are other groups that have other things on their mind, and some of those things can be, not something we'd like to see at all. So, the issue gets down to for us to rally our supporters to push the importance of the issues that we'd like to see, and of course, but at the same time, we also rally some of those same people to, in essence, to reject some of the ideas that others might think is a great idea, but we'd view as detrimental going forward for the folks that we represent, and generally the broader highway safety issue too.
Well, and just to kind of clarify too, I think to your point about things not moving as a standalone, I'll use the truck parking bill that OOIDA has been working on for a long time, right? It's been introduced or reintroduced this year. It's a few pages long. It's very unlikely that Congress would move that on its own, right? They attach it to a bigger bill, and that's a highway bill in this case, and that's ultimately what Congress works on. So it makes things a little more challenging when you have a 1,000-page bill, but that's just kind of the way it works. So when we come back, I want to start getting into some of these issues, and just to kind of read a few of them. You have insurance, parking, tolling and congestion pricing, automatic emergency braking, underrides, CSA, sleep apnea, hours of service, a VMT or a vehicle miles traveled pilot, some entry-level driver training stuff, detention time, and it goes on. There's a few more, but hopefully we can get into some of this when we come back from the break. Again, we are talking with Todd Spencer and Lewie Pugh, who was only about a minute late this time, so but glad to have you. And again, the number to dial in is 317-676-6432. Again, that's 317-676-6432. When we get back, we're going to talk about insurance and go from there. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute.
$45. It ain't what it used to be. today? With OOIDA, it can be worth a whole lot more. A $45 membership helps you save with special pricing from top vendors on equipment, fuel, tires, services, and much more. Plus things the whole family can enjoy, like restaurants and travel. Save hundreds, even thousands. You can't afford not to be a member of OOIDA. Go to OOIDA.com. Your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name's Mike Matousek, and I'm the host of Live from Exit 24. Again, we have Lewie, Pugh, and Todd Spencer here to talk about the highway bill and some of the issues in it. The first one, let's just get right into it. I mentioned earlier on the show that OOIDA sent a letter to Chairman Peter DeFazio and Ranking Member Sam Graves. Those are the two top transportation lawmakers in the House. At least that's what I would consider them. So, and the first section in the letter, Todd, talks about the federal insurance requirements. And last year there was a push to go to increase that from $750,000 to $2 million. And I want to read the one sentence that OOIDA said. It said, such an increase is wholly unnecessary, would do nothing to improve highway safety, and would have a severe negative impact on businesses well beyond traditional trucking companies. Todd, can you kind of elaborate on the insurance issue, what it is, what our position is, and anything else you want to cover on it?
Actually, historically, the federal government set the current levels of minimum levels of financial responsibility. That's just basically liability insurance that a trucker would have back. Actually, it's been a long time ago. It was 1983, which is a long time ago. But, the number realistically, it was pretty much plucked out of the air. And, it was. There was no real way to do an actuarial analysis that whether or not this is an appropriate number or not based on safety or crashes. They just plucked it out of the air. And, certainly proponents of increasing that number say, well, wait a minute, it hasn't been raised in, forever, near 38 years. Okay, well, it's been appropriate for all that long. And actually, in most instances, most drivers go above the $750,000 anyway. They go to $1 million. And again, that's basically worked in the market forever. To significantly increase that amount now would likely create a lot of economic uncertainty that we think would certainly result in significantly higher costs for liability insurance for every small carrier. And of course, when you look at the data, and FMCSA actually did study this issue because they were requested to by Congress, and basically what they found is the current minimum, not even what most drivers have, but the current minimum is more than adequate to cover the overwhelming majority of all crashes that take place between trucks and other people. And when I say overwhelming majority, it's 99.4%. Now, what regulation or law or something like that do you have in this country that is effective in meeting its purpose 99.5% of the time? And somebody wants to change that, and then of course, the rationale for doing it is basically based on results of half a dozen catastrophic crashes that take place, and even that issue doesn't address catastrophic crashes that really take place because most catastrophic crashes or accidents that take place in this country now don't involve a truck at all. So we don't care about those. We care about truckers simply because we have too many attorneys running around that basically see trucks.
Make a lot of money from this.
Well, that see a bullseye on every truck. Yeah. And even if you are a bigger player now in trucking and you think, well, that doesn't really affect me. Well, guess what? What happens is suing trucking companies is a growth industry. It is. That's reality. And all that's been done is you put a bigger bullseye on every truck in the road, and you have 2 to 3 times more attorneys that are basically trying to take full advantage of that bullseye. So, I mean, that's not good public policy. But again, that issue is something before Congress because generally proponents of that crap, they're big contributors, and they all know they're lawmakers, and they communicate with them regularly. And, what we've got to try to do is encourage folks that will be affected by this, and it's far more than just, a trucker here and there, but it will increase costs for everything. And again, it won't serve any useful purpose whatsoever unless, look, there are plenty of jobs for attorneys. They don't all have to be suing truckers.
That's a great analysis, and I guess since we have a lot of issues to cover. Actually, Lewie, I want to move on to parking. Unless you have anything to add on insurance, I maybe move to a topic that is, you have something really good to say about, and that's truck parking. And you were out on the road for a long time, operated a lot on the East Coast. I think in the Northeast, especially, where parking is probably more limited than most other parts of the country. So. Can you talk about the parking effort that OOIDA has had in D.C. and kind of where that stands now, Lewie?
Yeah, I think I've said it on this show multiple times, but we've been fighting the parking ever since I've been here for 17 years. I mean, my first trip to Washington was probably in 2005, I think. Rod was down there then, and I went down for a meeting on parking, and it's been to very many meetings and symposiums and workshops and
whatever they want to call it.
Whatever
right?
you want to call it. I've been to a whole bunch of them in all these years, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I ran the East Coast mainly from Richmond, Virginia, north, and along New York City, New Jersey, probably more than anything. But parking's a premium in the Northeast. I think parking's a premium in any major, especially in any major metropolitan area. I mean, it's a living fact that they can make more money with a store or a shopping mall or a business or anything with that land than what they can with a truck parking. And I think we've seen Frederick, Maryland, Fredericksburg, Virginia. There's both good-sized truck stops there. Now there's a Target sitting there where both of those are, and other places like that around the country. And in 2008, 9, when fuel and everything went crazy, a lot of the smaller mom and pop truck stops went away, got wiped out, unfortunately. And so it's not good anywhere. It's a catastrophe everywhere. But the good thing is we're trying. We're getting a lot of co-sponsors. We still urge people to call their congressman and ask to get on board with the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act. And, we're looking forward to hopefully moving this through the infrastructure bill that's getting ready to come up, because we're not real sure that the highway bill is going to go anywhere, but and there's some stuff in there that's going to be detrimental to truckers. So we'd really like to see us parking get into the infrastructure bill where we don't have those issues.
Absolutely. And let's move on. Let's keep going. We got a lot of issues to cover. Todd, I'm going to go back to you on tolling and congestion pricing. That's the next issue that is listed in this letter. What do you want to say about the tolling and congestion pricing stuff?
Not a good idea. I mean, really, not a good idea. Our country, our transportation system, basically, the national transportation system was created and actually, unbelievably successful based on dedicated user fees, and those dedicated user fees were always fuel taxes. And, this worked splendidly for decades simply because people drove more. Many of the vehicles that were on the road were consuming at least twice as much fuel now as they were then. So the place where policymakers were in is that every year they had more money that was going to be available that they could use for transportation purposes. And of course, all of that started changing after that started changing in the 80s and has continued since. So because the idea of because the rationale was there that you won't always have more money for this stuff as vehicles became more and more fuel efficient. They don't burn as much gas. Same thing with trucks. The trucks don't burn nothing like the fuel that they used to burn not all that many years ago. So, and it makes sense to do that. But the downside of that is there's not so much money that went into the Highway Trust Fund. So realistically, there's a whole bunch of us that have been in the camp for decades now that basically say no new taxes, no new taxes, no new taxes. Well, that resonated big time with lawmakers in D.C. and basically from 2000 on, the pretty much over-pervading sentiment in D.C. is that we're not going to touch fuel taxes. And it was, while it was politically toxic, if you do that, you'll get killed. You won't win re-election. You'll get primaried. Da da da. I mean, this goes back to 2000, so that's 21 years ago now. Last time federal fuel taxes raised were 1993. So anyway, the fact that as 1993 dollars don't go as far today as they do then, I mean that's pretty obvious. But if you're not going to raise fuel taxes, well then how else are you going to come up with new revenues? And of course, more and more. I mean, we saw this actually after 2000, a conscious effort coming out of D.C. to encourage states to adopt toll roads and go with that as a way for funding highways. And I don't know if I don't think you'd find many truckers right now that think they get a good deal out of toll roads. I mean, there's only one thing that's going to happen. The prices are only going to go up. And of course, long ago, states abandoned the idea that they would actually refund fuel taxes that you paid if you run on toll road miles. So that don't happen either. So the notion that it's double taxation, well, hell yes, that's true. But again, right now, Congress seems to have the fever, certainly some in Congress, that hey, we'll toll everything and that'll resolve everybody's problems. Well, it'll create a monstrous headache for truckers. So we'd prefer that not be the way we go forward, but that's not something we can be silent on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this debate has been going on for a long time. Congress was talking about an expansion of tolling, a long time ago. They haven't been able to raise the fuel tax. We've seen over the last few years, probably more than half of states in this country have raised their state diesel and gas tax. Here in Missouri, where we're headquartered, they're looking at doing something this year on that. So we've talked about a VMT, a vehicle miles traveled tax. And at the end of the day, the federal government and states are probably going to get their money one way or another. I guess the question is, how do they get it and who pays what? And that's kind of, where this whole debate, tolling and VMT and gas and diesel taxes all play into it. Lewie, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, tolling and congestion pricing is a complete stack the deck against the American trucker. I mean, because for one, you a lot of times don't have any choice when you can deliver or pick up goods. You have to do it when there's people there working. And, a lot of places that's from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, or, 6 to 6 or something. Even places that are open 24 hours a day sometimes only have certain windows for shipping and receiving. So, if you have to pay I get congestion pricing for the motoring public. They want people to carpool or use public transportation or whatever have you, and that's fine. But, you can't put your products on public transportation. You can't carpool your products into the city. So it's completely stacked. The deck's completely stacked against them. And, this is near and dear to my heart because from running the East Coast, I paid a lot of tolls, and my tolls yearly average between $10,000 and $12,000 every year.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, for crossing bridges, a lot of that was just for crossing the bridge in New York. And I looked yesterday, was doing some things. I just looked to see what Pennsylvania Turnpike was. Of course, if you have Easy Pass, you get a discount or whatever, but if you pay cash from New Stanton, Pennsylvania to over to Philly at the Valley Forge exit, I used to run across there some, it's now over $1. It's like $1.27 a mile if you're Class 7 on there. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a ton of money. Well, guys, thank you. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to get Bill from North Carolina on the line, I think with a question or comment about the PRO Act, which has been getting a lot of attention lately. And then we'll also try to cover automatic emergency braking and underride protection. So again, we're with Todd Spencer and Lewie Pugh. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute.
I'm a dad.
A son.
A husband.
Wife.
I'm a writer.
Photographer.
I farm. I'm a veteran.
I love old cars. Fishing.
My kids.
Chrome. And I am a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Live from Exit 24. I'm your host, Mike Matousek, and we have Todd Spencer and Lewie Pugh with OOIDA on the line. And as I said before the break, we're going to go to Bill in North Carolina. Bill, if you can hear me, you are on the line. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
That's good. I wanted to touch a little bit on this PRO Act. I didn't want to interrupt your guys' program and your topics here, but they're including this in this bill, if I'm correct. And I don't think that it should be, I don't think a bill for labor, wage and hour, and misclassification should be included in anything that has to do with infrastructure or a highway bill. It should be something that's totally different. And I just don't agree with it. I don't think it's the right way to go about things. I think there's going to be a lot of truckers that don't understand how this works. And there's going to be a lot of people hurt and put out of business and possibly fined if they can stay in business or not. I don't know. What do you guys say about this PRO Act being part of all of this?
Hey, Bill, that's a great question. I'm going to turn it over to Todd and Lewie. I think my initial reaction is that I don't think it's in the infrastructure bill as of now. I'm certainly not going to make political predictions about the future. But Todd, anything you want to say on this?
No, I don't think it. We have an office in D.C. We have a staff in D.C. that basically communicate with lawmakers, staff lawmakers on an everyday basis. It's not certainly not part of consideration for the highway bill or the infrastructure bill. And as Bill mentioned, it is a big issue, and actually it would go through different committees like labor and education. And yeah, it is a big bill. As far as from our perspective here, it's way too big, way too. I'm going to say it's not comprehensive. It's more or less just kind of scattershot. It's kind of like it's not. It is different than AB5 in California, but it still tackles an issue that is so much broader that it's got to be segmented. The position that we've taken in California is no, this thing needs to go down, simply because if you're going to address these issues, you got to address them on kind of a segment by segment basis, because everything is not the same, and that's largely the same in D.C. Because when you look at trucking, there are so many different regulations that come into play, responsibilities of carriers versus drivers, and how those are intertwined. And some of that stuff's prescribed by law. So you can't simply say you're either this or that without addressing all of these other issues. And again, our position on the PRO Act is that this is not something that's ready for prime time, anywhere close to prime time. And we don't, again, we've heard nothing about trying to insert that into anything else. And to be candid with you, politically, I don't think the folks would want it to, simply because the more controversial you make anything, the harder it is to pass. And right now, passing much of anything is going to be tough in D.C. simply because of the partisan gridlock.
And Bill, this is Mike. I would just add too, and then I'll turn it over to Lewie and back to you, Bill, if you want to say something more on it. This bill passed Congress last year, and it passed the House last year, died in the Senate. was reintroduced, and it again has passed the House. The dynamic in the Senate hasn't really changed enough. It still would need, as of now, 60 votes to get through the Senate. The big question, I guess, is, and Bill, that's to your point, is what happens to the filibuster in the Senate? Does it stay intact? Is it modified? Who knows? And then theoretically, the infrastructure bill, at least as of now, is likely to move through Congress using reconciliation, which I don't know a lot about it, but I suppose it's possible that the PRO Act could be included in the infrastructure bill. Will it? I really don't know, but procedurally, I think it's possible. Lewie, anything to add before we turn it back over to Bill?
No, I think Todd summed it up. This is just, again, they're taking a hand grenade approach instead of a scalpel approach.
Bill, anything to add on that?
Well, I would agree that it is, like what Lewie just said, it is a hand grenade approach. They do need to carve stuff out. But California just fought back and said, no, we're not going to carve anything out. And the injunction was lifted as three of us or four of us know already, and maybe listeners don't, but they do now. That's something that's very concerning to me because it should be a carve-out. There should be sections set aside. It should be handled separately instead of a one-size-fits-all. But I will say directly to Todd that every piece of political news rag that I've read coming out of D.C. has indicated that Biden and Schwartz, Joe and Marty, are together on this, and they want to shove this through on the infrastructure bill because it did not pass the last time in the Senate, and that's how they think they're going to get it through. So the other thing is that people think that even if this does go through, that the misclassification is going to automatically stop and the government's going to step in. That's not how this works. I had to explain this to a guy this morning. It has to be the employees or the people that are contracted to the company itself that complain to the government, and then the government will take action. This isn't simply they pass the PRO Act and all of a sudden everybody who's misclassified becomes classified properly. This is just like the old rule. You have to file a complaint, and then it will be followed up on. So the danger becomes in a driver or a contractor filing a complaint against the company that he's contracted to, he or she is contracted to, and then them getting blackballed or blacklisted. This is where the federal government fails the American worker. Again, they're failing the American worker because it takes the American worker to take the action. Whereas the federal government and the state government, by both filing state and federal taxes, they already know, and corporate taxes, they already know who pays who what, whether your guys get paid a W-2 as an employer or whether your guys get paid as a 1099 if you're their employer. I think this is a backwards, insert the word there, way of doing things. But unless we all stand up together and fight this and stop inner fighting like I see so much of, I don't think we've got a shot in a dark place to stop them because California just gave us the indication that this may in fact go nationwide. We hope it doesn't,
Yeah, Bill.
That's my point.
Yeah, Bill, that's a great point, and always appreciate your thoughtful analysis. We covered this quite a bit a couple of shows ago, and probably something we need to cover even more as it moves forward, or as we get later into this year. It will be interesting to see what Congress does with it. Again, we know it's a priority of Congress, of certainly of some people in Congress. So where it goes from here, we really don't know. It's kind of speculating at this point.
It's a priority of OOIDA's as well. I mean, we are bringing these points up and these issues. Bryce especially is on top of this and meeting almost every day with members of the House and stuff about this. So, again, it's a priority of ours as well. As we say so many times, this is probably one of these battles where members are going to have to pick up the phone. And they're going to have to call their member of Congress and tell them what they want. I mean, we can go down and preach the message, and we do. But with that being said, we need follow-up of membership the people that this will really affect their livelihood, calling and explaining how and why.
Well, Bill, thank you so much.
Well,
go ahead.
I don't see how they can wipe out a company like, take Landstar, for example. I looked them up last night, and I think it was 1968 is when they first started. And so they've been in business for over 50 years. How can this administration just come in and say, your business is no longer valid, we've been allowing this for 50-plus years, you're gone, you're done, you're finished, goodbye, have a nice day. I don't think that's right. I don't think the federal government has that right. I think they're way overstepping their boundaries.
Part of the dilemma that we have here is we don't really know what we're dealing with simply because nobody is in a position where they have answers to the many scenarios that would come up. I mean, we need a referee in this deal to decide what helps others achieve their goals, their ends, and in creating what would be a fair relationship. And of course, this stuff, I can sense frustration on your part, Bill, and of course, appropriately so. For example, in California, you mentioned that the injunction has been lifted. Well, the court said the injunction is lifted. It hasn't actually been lifted yet, and that'll involve a period of weeks. And then, of course, the way this plays out after that is that there will be appeals as on the part of the parties. OOIDA is one of them. We've joined with California Trucking Association, and ultimately, we believe this issue will likely be appealed up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, I don't know how much time that will take, but it will take some time. And kind of what's frustrated us is that when we reach out to California to say, well, look, tell us how to comply, there is nobody there to be in a position to answer the questions. When we reach out to lawmakers, they basically say, well, let's see how the court case plays out. So, the whole broader issue is just one that's loaded with frustration. The only thing I'm going to say is that we will get through it. We will get through it. There will be trucks running in California and everywhere else. Somebody will be operating those trucks. And of course, for my entire lifetime in trucking, and there are folks older than me that'll say the same thing, they've been predicting the demise of the owner-operator. Well, there's more now than there's ever been, and there will be, simply because when it comes to overall efficiency and economics, the one truck, one guy, it don't get any better than that. And for safety too. And the market always recognizes that, and we're gonna be around for a long time.
Hey, Bill, the floor is yours for about another minute, and then we have to take a break.
Okay.
If you have anything you want to add,
I don't doubt it at all, Todd. Yeah, I do. I don't doubt it at all, Todd. My concern is, right now, the other day I put out an ad for a friend of mine looking for a job. The one company I spoke to said they have already switched over because of what they're thinking is going to come with the PRO Act. It cost them a lot of money to put everyone on W-2, which they did. They're a small company. But the guys are not going to see the increase in the raise at all. And they're probably capped out now. So there's that aspect of that, too, is that companies have already started to change because of what the government might do. It's the same thing that happened with the ELD many years ago, So that's another concern of mine as well.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, thank you so much. Always enjoy the conversation with you. And we have about 40 seconds or so until our next break. I did say we were going to get to automatic emergency braking and underride guards, and we will, but it'll be after this next break. Again, we're with Todd Spencer, OOIDA President and CEO, and Lewie Pugh, OOIDA Executive Vice President, talking about the highway bill, the infrastructure bill, the PRO Act, and AB 5, which there are differences between all four of those things, and maybe we need to spend a show highlighting all of that. Again, the number to call in, is 317-676-6432. We will be back in about 30 seconds. Please stay tuned.
Every time you turn the key, you hope you've crossed your I's and dotted your T's. Because the last thing you want to be is non-compliant with the DOT. Fortunately, there's OOIDA. It's like spell check for truckers. Federal regulations? Check. Lease agreements and warranties? Check. Permits, drug and alcohol testing? Check and check. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We have about 15 minutes left in this show live from Exit 24. Again, with Todd Spencer and Lewie Pugh of OOIDA. And as I said, let's get into a couple other issues. Lewie, automatic emergency braking systems or technologies, AEB for short. What's your thought on that? We know there was a mandate in the highway bill last year to require AEB technology on all new trucks. What's your perspective or view on this as a driver?
I mean, how great can this be? I don't have to worry about hitting the brake pedal no more. I can put Bandit behind the wheel and let him steer.
Bandit
as long as
would
he can
like
steer.
that.
I don't have to worry about him hitting the pedals. No, in all seriousness, I think there's a lot of flaws here. I mean, of course, anyone would embrace technology if it really helped and we knew it was really going to make you safer. But I don't, there's a lot of questions here with this. My first question is, what about on a bad road? Well, on ice or snow or something like that? I mean, you just use a jake brake, for example. They tell you right in your CDL manual to turn your jake brake off on slippery roads. And I know some people do and some people don't, but people have learned how to drive and use this equipment, over the years with experience. But with that being said, again, we're trying to, in my opinion, get technology out there to take away from the real issue of safety, and that's training of the driver, because technology is a lot cheaper in the long run, I guess. But, bad roads, types of freight you haul, I pulled a tanker for a little bit, not long, but I can't imagine what automatic braking would do with a tanker with that stuff back with no baffles back there. So say you're 3/4 the way loaded. And then we see, I've driven a few rental cars or stuff with this stuff on it. You see a lot of false things happen. The car makes noises or blow or, something like that. I've driven a few trucks just short, like shuttling, helping somebody out a couple of times that has this technology. And it drove me crazy because it was constantly beeping and buzzing. And I was in a traffic situation and, just going through a metropolitan area, and traffic was going, but the thing kept slowing down because it was hooked to the cruise control and beeping and buzzing the whole time. It would drive me insane personally.
And what was in the bill last year? There's no on or off switch for it. I mean, it's basically on. The beeps that you heard of, I've said this before. One of our members that I've talked to quite a bit over the years used to drive a truck that had this technology in it, and the beeps. He used to call me, and for 30 minutes, all I heard was the beeping, and it's, you can't control what other vehicles do. You can't control rush hour traffic. I mean, it's inevitable that you're going to be in a situation where those beeps just come at you all the time. So, and cost, I think, is another thing. I think the OOIDA Foundation has said that it's roughly $2,000 or $2,500 more for a new truck with AEB technology on it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true too. And again, I see lots of truck accidents, lots of pictures of truck accidents, unfortunately, around here. I'm sure a lot of those trucks that I see have this technology on it, so I'm not necessarily think that's the end-all, be-all, and I think there's a lot of unintended consequences to this that nobody wants to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to another issue, and that's underride protections. In this case, I think we're talking about side underride guards. The rear guards, the DOT bumpers, that's really not what's at issue here. The question is, will Congress and or the Department of Transportation require trailers effectively to have some kind of side underride guard device? And I don't know which of you wants to start with this. There was legislative text in the highway bill last year. We know who's pushing for this stuff, but Lewie, I'll keep it with you. Anything you want to say about the underride guard, the issue itself, and the language in the highway bill?
Yeah, again, this is another, unfortunately something happens, there's an accident, and people have the best intentions, but these are, again, in my opinion, this is a lot of stuff that we're not looking at the unintended consequences. First of all, we don't even know how many accidents this will stop because we don't even know how many side impact accidents there are. There's no information out there. We're told a couple hundred. One side says there's way more than that. One side says there's less than that. We don't have accurate numbers on that. This law is way too intrusive, in my opinion. I guess any trailer over 10,000 pounds has to have it, or a combination. So, this could actually get into where a trailer you pull with your pickup truck would have to have one of these things on it. We've had meetings with the people that are behind this, of course, quite a few, and which we appreciate them reaching out to us. But there's a lot of stuff there that they don't realize in the trucking industry and how diverse the industry is and how diverse trailers are. Underride guards on a van who runs from terminal to terminal. Yeah,
maybe it works, right?
Yeah, it probably worked just fine. A guy that's pulling a bucket or, out into a field or, on a job site or a flatbed with job site or, reefers or van trailers where you back down into them old pit docks, and you drag your dolly legs. I've been in docks where my dolly legs are dragged, so I don't know how you're going to, rip this off. And then if they put the out of service criteria, and it's crazy. If there's you find anything wrong with it, you're automatically out of service. So you're having to have road repair come out and fix this, and you're hoping the guy who comes out to fix it knows what he's doing.
Can install, I guess, theoretically, a new side underride guard on your trailer.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of stuff in this that, again, it's just way over the top, and so of course with that we're against it. Not, there's also weight factors and all kind and cost. They took the retro out, if I'm correct.
Yeah, no retrofit.
There's no retrofit, which we're glad about that. But a lot of our members aren't fast to buy new trucks. Especially now with the way things are. But a lot of our guys do buy a lot of trailers and new trailers, and this is going to be an added cost. And like all equipment, it's just went up over the last, X amount of years and continues to go up in price.
Let's keep going down the list. Todd, I'm going to go to you with this one. CSA. There was language or a section in the bill last year that would basically require CSA data be made publicly available. What say you?
CSA was supposedly a program that the federal agency could use basically to as a measure of safety, and it's simply never done that ever. It's been revised through the years, and it's still no closer. It measures violations, it measures inspections, but the connection between the data that's collected, the violations written, and who crashes, they've just never been there. So it can't be a measurement tool to improve safety. And, of course, that information was made public for a period of time. It's not helpful to anybody in terms of making safety determinations, not to anyone, because it's just the data that they gather is data, but it's not indicative of safety. And, of course, what's happened with it, currently the agency and the states use it as basically as to focus on follow-ups and things like that. What it's also used, it's used by trial lawyers, ambulance chasers that sue trucking companies to basically paint a disparaging picture of whoever is involved, whether or not there's anything that's actually unsafe ever happen, any crash ever take place. And again, there is no useful purpose for it. And you could, the nicest thing to say is it's not ready for prime time. And if the information is not helpful, it shouldn't be broadcast to the public.
This is one of the first trucking issues, I should say, that I was exposed to when I worked on Capitol Hill in D.C. One of my favorite OOIDA members, Bill Bailey. We always talk about having a relationship, making phone calls and reaching out to congressional staff, and Bill Bailey did a heck of a job at that. And this was the issue at the time that he was was raising with me. And I thought it was real fascinating. I can't remember where it actually was in the process. 2010, I want to say, is maybe when it was formalized, but it was, being talked about, I think, and developed for a number of years before that. So, again, that was one of the first issues. Todd, anything else you want to say before we?
Well, I guess basically what I'd say is one of the things that the CSA program has basically shown is that the more regulations that Congress and others pass and implement, the more crashes there are. So, again, it serves, from my perspective, a no worthwhile purpose whatsoever. And of course, I threw my hat in the ring back, months ago to be considered to head the FMCSA. And one of the things that I would have done were I to head that agency, it would be show me through the regulations which regulations actually have a causal effect for crashes. Identify which ones, because the vast majority don't. They're just data that's gathered. Now, it might be worthwhile for some reason to do that, but if it doesn't have a causal relationship with crashes, then why would we focus on it? Why would that be a center of attention? And then, of course, the broader issue that should frustrate anyone, and I mean, even a policymaker, in the vast majority of crashes that involve a commercial truck, the truck didn't do anything wrong. So when you lump these great big numbers all together and you say truck crashes, well, wait a minute. In anywhere from 60 to 80 or 85% of those crashes, the trucker didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time, basically.
That's right.
Is it?
That's
yeah.
right. So you can't improve highway safety without looking at the broader picture and how vehicles interact together. And that's something that where FMCSA has got to go way beyond where it is to work with other agencies.
Absolutely. We have about 2 minutes left. I was going to get into another issue or two, but I don't think I'm going to. And Lewie, I'll just turn it over to you. I mean, obviously there's a lot of challenges this year with trucking issues in D.C. and across the country. And but OOIDA's there working on these issues every day, correct?
Yes, by all means. We are here every day. We've got guys in Washington every day. Hoping one of these days the world will open up so Lewie can get back to Washington some as well.
Washington wants Lewie, by the way.
Exactly.
DC needs
who doesn't
Lewie
want
Pugh.
Lewie? I mean, think about it. What's not to love?
I think Todd just threw up in his mouth a little bit. But yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Washington hasn't been open the way we traditionally think about it, and you haven't really been able to get to D.C. for a while.
No, and I've had a few calls with lawmakers and stuff like that. We've done some of that, virtually, but, it's still not the same as when you can walk in there and talk to them. With that, real quick, I know you're about to wrap up, but, our caller said we all got to be speaking in one voice, and he's correct. And I know sometimes it's frustrating that people don't always think that we're doing what they want, but we think big picture here at OOIDA, and by speaking one voice, join OOIDA, reach out to us, call us, tell us what's on your mind, because that is one voice. And if we as truckers can all speak as one voice, we can change things.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, Todd and Lewie, thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it, and hope to have you guys back on another show, which I'm sure we will. We have, I guess I should say this concludes another episode of Live from Exit 24. We're going to figure out a good topic for the 2 weeks from now, which I think I know what it is. We were kind of brainstorming during the show, but thank you for spending the last hour with us. We hope to see you back here in a couple of weeks and keep this show growing and just have a good time and talk about issues.
Thank you for joining us today. live from Exit 24 was brought to you by the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association and our technical crew, Barry Spillman, Nate Kelly, and Jim Fetzer. If you aren't a member yet, call our main number during business hours to join, and that number is 816-229-5791, or you can just go to our website at ooida.com.